Hi, all. Thank you for joining. We will get started. I know some are joining right now, so we'll get started here in a couple minutes. Got a nice group so far coming in. Where are you all joining from? Let us know. Hey, Rodney, thanks for joining. Always good to see you. All right, we're going to give it another minute, then we'll kick things off here. I think we're all spread out pretty much too. I'm in Nashville. Suzanne's in Texas. Kevin, where are you today?
I'm in Boston today,
You're in
so yeah.
Boston. Dain, Michael, where are you all sitting today?
I'm out of Seattle.
And I'm in Syracuse.
Nice. All right, well, we're a couple minutes past, so I think we should go ahead and get started. My name is Ann Sari. I am with the Elevate Technology User Group. I'm the executive director, and I really just wanted to thank you all for joining today's webcast. Today we have the Red Hat Virtualization webcast, and we're going to walk through in a minute. Suzanne's going to introduce our gracious speakers that we have here today. But real quick, in case you're not familiar with Elevate, we're an independent customer-led user group. So we focus on bringing customers together who are on the multi-cloud journey to modernizing their infrastructure using Dell technologies, and obviously some very strategic partners for that journey. We bring members together through various events, in-person, virtual, throughout the year. So we make sure to connect everybody so that you can share best practices, stories, experiences, so you can learn from one another. So perfect example is today we're going to hear from some experts and hear some best practices, and I think even a demo is on the agenda. During today's webcast, feel free to submit any questions through the comment or the Q&A. We'll be monitoring the chat and the Q&A function throughout the discussion. So I think that's all I have. I'm going to pass it over to Suzanne to kick things off. Suzanne Pickett, she is our host today. She is an SVP, Head of Infrastructure with Citizens Bank, and she's also a director on the Elevate User Group board. So Suzanne, I'll let you kick things off. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Appreciate it. Thank you for the introduction as well. Welcome, everyone. We're really glad to have you join us here today. We have some subject matter experts to help you on your journey, perhaps looking at virtualization and containerization alternatives. So with that, I would like to do, and I'm going to read this title, everyone, so forgive me. I'd like to introduce Kevin Tunks. He is our ecosystem global go-to-market leader for Red Hat OpenShift, but really he's here today to help bring some approaches, a more modern approach to technology to help us kind of help us align with some of our more critical organizational needs. We also have Michael Wells joining us today. He is a lead engineering technologist with Dell. Is that right, Michael?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, just checking. Wanted to make sure my notes were correct. With Dell Technologies, his focus area is really covering the Apex Cloud platform and Red Hat OpenShift for the last couple of years. So listen to this guy. He's the smart guy in the room. And we also have Dain. Dain Landis joins us he's a global technical solutions architect from Worldwide Technologies, or WWT, as most of us call him. And he also sits on the virtualization container platform teams. So please join me in welcoming everybody to our webinar today. And appreciate you all being here and helping us navigate through what's coming next for everybody. So one of the things we were talking about before we went live was that there's a lot going on in the industry. There's a lot of churn and toil. And we know that people are looking for the next thing to land on. Kevin, can you kick us off and just tell us what you're seeing out there in the marketplace and some of the directions some companies and other leaders are going in?
Yeah, no, and thanks. I appreciate that, Suzanne, and thanks everybody for joining. By the way, it's great that you're carving out some time to chat with us and talk a little bit about what's happening here. So, I do get the opportunity to spend a lot of time with both partners and with customers, talking about what are the big conversations that they're having, and it all kind of boils down to two conversations. So, and I'm only really going to focus on one of them today, but it really comes down to, hey, we've had this significant supply chain disruption event happen with virtualization, and where do we go from here? How do we deal with that? What are the alternatives that we can approach? And then how do we look at things coming down the pike, like modernization and AI and other capabilities? So it's sort of a we know so many of those partners and customers know that there is sort of this change coming. um, some of them have decided to very quickly kick off on their transformation processes. Some are taking a more incremental approach, sort of taking 24 in order to plan out where they're going, look at some alternatives, get their budgets and everything else together about where they want to go, to really kick things off in 25. So that virtualization conversation has come up almost ubiquitously across all partners and customers. And so what we've done is really start to look at, hey, how do we help you in this process? How do we help you understand and talk the strategy around reestablishing trust and consistency and reliability into a supply chain, as an alternative for virtualization? And Red Hat has done a lot of investment in that space to really bring that to the table. For some customers, I will just say it's just a pure, hey, just help me migrate. I just need to get to safer ground. I'm not looking to do anything more than that. It's very cost sensitive. It's very minimize that activities. For other customers, it's, I want to migrate, but then do a little bit more. I need to start to build some habits that go into DevOps and CI/CD and other things that they could start to infuse without ever having to refactor applications to ever go into the cloud native space, but just purely as VM to VM. And then lastly, there's some customers that say, hey, I've got a set of applications that I do need to move into a VM, into a containerized space. I do need to modernize those and really take that next step. So those are customers who go, hey, does it make a lot of sense to put your legacy VMs, rehost those, just replatform those, but then also have that same unified capability and platform in order to run both VMs and have cloud leading container platform to be able to do that. So that's kind of what we're seeing. That's kind of tees up the situation, and now we're working with partners, and we're very excited to be here with Dell and WWT, to talk about how together we're making this much more achievable, much easier, and frankly, much faster to implement than ever before.
Thank you for that. Definitely, we're seeing some emerging companies and technologies coming out. And one of the things that I know that even I'm looking for in my own space, being in the financial industry, is something that can help me maintain a lot of that enterprise touch and feel. Do you want to expand on that at all?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that's certainly a big driver on this, particularly for anybody who's in a highly regulated space or a government space or an area where the deep enterprise capabilities really come to bear, from governance and observability and consistency around those areas. So That's really one of the areas I would hope that Red Hat is quite differentiated in, because of our history with RHEL, because of our history with supporting customers across their entire hybrid journey of on-prem, at the edge, and certainly in the public clouds as well. Having the right tooling to be able to um, work with many of the tools that are already there in place, not having to disrupt everything in your environment in order to take this step forward into Red Hat virtualization or OpenShift virtualization, to really give it that motion forward. That's a piece that we spend a lot of time on and really have enhanced significantly by partnering with Dell, by not only making it so you can repurpose existing hardware to do that initial activity, but also be able to do refresh with your hardware that helps you accelerate that and retire even more complexity as you go forward. So exciting opportunities to go with that, to keep the complexity low, but the enterprise and support levels extremely high.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you for that. One of just touching on a phrase that you mentioned just a minute or so ago, you said safer ground. And when I think about that and safer ground, I think about how we collectively as an industry, bought into previous containerization and virtualization technologies. Can you talk to the group a little bit? Talk to me, right? It's all about me. Can you talk to the group a little bit more about how you see Red Hat OpenShift helping to kind of prevent some of that infrastructure fragmentation going forward?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? I think one of the areas that we have focused a lot on in over many years now is investing in upstream communities. It was back in 2007 that Red Hat really initiated and built in the KVM project space upstream in a CNV way. And so because of making those investments, we've really put in place a consistent architecture and framework underneath, whether it's your your cloud migrations or on-prem migrations. It's a very seamless environment to be able to use those spaces. So having the ability to build a set of habits around deployment, build a set of concepts in, and be able to use those same tooling, use familiar models, regardless if you start a project in the cloud and decide that's where your dev and test environments need to live, but ultimately for compliance reasons or data gravity reasons, your production environments need to stay on-prem, or vice versa. If you start with something on-prem and then move to the edge or into the cloud, those can move seamlessly and consistently with really similar platform concepts as they move. I think those are the pieces that are pretty different than most others do, right? Like there's certainly cloud offerings that become very specific to which cloud that they go to. There are other toolings that are very opinionated in their way of approaching things. They can be very powerful, very good, but they're very opinionated. And so I think with what we've tried to do with OpenShift virtualization is build something that is consistent regardless of where you want to run that. So you can put your applications wherever they most make sense to run those particular applications.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And we had talked about how it's not just swapping out what you have, right? Or getting rid of something. Right. It's also creating that foundation to modernize. Can you talk just a little bit more detail around some of those additional capabilities, or maybe Dain or Michael would like to chime in with that? I'll just open it up.
Yeah, I think I'll kind of start, and Michael, maybe I'll pass over to you, my friend.
Okay.
because you and I do this on whiteboards frequently enough, which I really appreciate. So with the change, I often talk about this change as kind of like what happened when smartphones took over from BlackBerry. There was a lot of confidence and a lot of built-in trust in the BlackBerry platform. And if you were around long enough, if you've been around long enough to remember the BlackBerries, those were pretty hard to give up at one point in time. But as the smartphones came in, there was really just so much more that you could do with them. You could do more on the application space. You could unlock more screen real estate, more capability than you could do on the BlackBerry format. And so in doing that, it created a fairly extreme shift. But that meant to get that benefit, to get those capabilities, you really did have to give up on some of those features that you loved. So that hard keyboard that was on that BlackBerry, man, that was super popular. But you gave that up for the touch screens, and so there's a change in mindset that comes with that. But with that change in mindset, you also start to introduce CI/CD and DevOps concepts into how you're running your infrastructure. And while that seems a little different for a lot of folks that are used to what I'll call click ops, right? In other virtualization tooling, the ability to reach scale and have consistency that's driven as a result of that change is really phenomenal. So that's one area that I would highlight of unlocking the potential efficiencies that come out of making this change beyond just having that reinforced trust in choice, frankly, in how you procure and how you map your architectures. I don't know, Michael, what would you add to that?
No, I think that's a great point because when you talk about this modernization, it's change, right? It's a different way of doing things, but the reason for the difference is significant, right? There are things that you can achieve in this modern application landscape that were inconceivable in traditional architecture, right? The things we talk about, I mean, you just look at the migration of web applications over time, right? It used to be we'd have to throw up a maintenance page to take a site down to do a deployment, and then we got load balancers and said, okay, we'll just take one node out of the load balancer and at a time and update each one. The website never actually goes down, and I push all my updates out. Well, now through modern application design patterns and infrastructure as code and automation, we can leave the currently running application untouched, deploy another copy running the new version of the application, and start to gradually move users over, do blue-green deployments, A/B testing. These are things that weren't really conceivable before, either because of the complexity or the hardware requirements to accomplish this. It opens up a lot of capabilities, and we talk about the speed of innovation and being able to respond quickly to the needs of the business. And not everybody needs to get to a point where they're deploying their application hundreds of times per day, right? But it's possible. There are organizations that are doing this, and as crazy as that sounds, that's actually allowing the organization to do things that they would have never been able to do before. So it's those modern principles, and this stuff isn't. This has been around for a while. It's just it was kind of localized to the cloud space, the hyperscaler space for a long time. And now people are starting to realize that we can use those same design patterns, those same application architectures, the same types of infrastructure as code on-prem and get the same benefits and create that greater consistency between what I run on-prem and what I run in the public cloud, because I don't need to think about where is it going to live when I design the application, right? I just design the application and I can run it where it's wherever the best place is to run that, which can change over time. And so having those patterns and practices, I love the term that was thrown out earlier, habits, right? Getting those habits down now. If you're going through a situation where you have to move from one platform to another, it's inevitable. You're going to have to change some of your practices, some of your procedures, right? This is the perfect opportunity to start to implement some of those modern concepts. And then even if you're just dealing with virtualization today, by moving in this direction, if at some point down the road you're going to move into the container space, you already have all of those habits in place. It's not new to you. You can already do this. And you're set up in such a way where VMs and containers can coexist not just peacefully, but actually work better side by side, because I can actually start to take advantage of the fact that the virtual machine has access to the pod networking, and I can actually call into containerized applications without having to route to expose that application outside the cluster, go through a route through an ingress controller, any of those things. It just streamlines that so significantly.
I love that, Michael, you know, the better together concept. Now, want to talk a little bit about, you know, we talked a little bit about modernization, but I also want to talk about flexibility. But before we do that, it would not be a webinar unless we put up a poll. So I am going to ask Anne, our hostess with the mostest, if she wants to go and put up the one of the polls that she has for this group. And if y'all wouldn't mind, if you could take a quick look. You know, we just want to understand, when you are evaluating alternative solutions, what's most important to you, and pick the things that are most important. It's a snap quiz. What do you mean host and panelists cannot vote? That's not fair.
Love it. I love it.
All right, Anne, let us know when you're done. Yep. So if for those of you on the call, cost is a primary concern, scalability and ease of management. I think those are things that we're all very concerned about in our day-to-day. And I know as a leader within my own organization, cost, of course, is something that we're definitely dealing with our previous provider. All right, well, appreciate that, Anne. So I think we're doing okay on time. Thank you, Dain and Michael, for talking a little bit about some of the modern features of the platform. I do see that there is a pretty good question in the Q&A. So Kevin, I wanted to give you, before we kind of get back and we start talking about flexibility, let's take a moment and ask a real world question for most of us. Is Red Hat OpenShift a complete virtualization solution that can replace VMware vCenter?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and it is kind of the $66,000 question, if you will. It is, and here's where I say, here's my only caveat to that, is that it preserves a lot of choice about existing things that you've invested in. So if you're heavily invested in a storage array backup, or your backup solution, or your DR solutions, it largely works with those solutions in conjunction. There are certainly some areas that are like moved more towards the storage capability in order to do some of those functions. It's not so much that it's moved, it's that it's really bringing where that's actually occurring at, even from that piece. So I think one of the things that I don't know, we might want to do it here, Suzanne, as part of that conversation, is just to do a quick demo. I know Dain has prepped some stuff. Maybe it makes sense to throw just that quick demo that's like three, 4, 5 minutes kind of time window, and kind of just not only just talk about how great it is and how complete it is, but maybe show a couple of those things if that works.
I was thinking the exact same thing. So everyone, what we'd like to do now is hand it over to Dain from WWT. He's gonna walk us through a demo that he has prepared. And Dain, could you just kind of give us the context of the demo and kind of talk us through what you're gonna show us?
Yeah, it's It's going to be fairly high level. So I don't know the audience if you've seen OpenShift virtualization or OpenShift in general. But I was just going to give a high level of what you see, what are the capabilities here, and dive each of them. But right before I jump in, I did want to touch on where Michael was saying about like the future and kind of where OpenShift virtualization is. I think it's important too that when customers are looking at different hypervisor solutions to also look at what is your long-term goal. If you're really planning to modernize your data center, look at future capabilities, then OpenShift virtualization is really the scenario where you're going to look versus do I want to just go into the same thing and spend all that money to migrate? So it's just something to think about. But to jump in here, this is your general dashboard, and this system is running on Dell Apex within our Advanced Technology Center at WWT. And one of the nice features about being on the Apex platform is it's going to give you some of that cluster management capability and really streamline the solution overall. So as we jump in, I can show that part of this install, you'll see that we have a Dell Apex Cloud Platform add-on here. And that I'll jump in here. It will pull up, and this is just going to give us details about our cluster and as well as how we manage this platform. So as you can see here, we have 4 compute nodes here. We can click on them, and we have some critical alarms showing up. We were doing some testing internally to generate some errors, so we wanted to see that. But this just gives us detail of what we have deployed within this environment. And it will also give us good visual representation of that hardware. So we could deep dive and see general views. And it really simplifies the management of this overall solution. In addition, one of the really good features about the Apex offering is that Dell takes care of not only the platform updates, but also OpenShift for you. So those will come in packages that will just really streamline maintaining the cluster and keeping it up to date and synchronized. And if there's ever a problem, Dell and Red Hat has been great. So we've been testing this here. We have this whole unit we've been playing from initial deployment, working with the support teams, and really it is a great solution. So I just wanted to touch on that. But really what we're here is about virtualization. So when you want to add virtualization to OpenShift, it's an operator. So you get your deployment, you'll go in as an operator, you'll add this, and it's going to add that capability for you. And it's just really KubeVirt on the background. But what Red Hat's done is really package this up to give you that enterprise class solution for virtualization as well as that view. So we can come in here and see the virtualization overview. And you can see that you're going to get details overall of your cluster, how many VMs are running, top consumers, if you have any migrations going, which we'll touch on as well as just that addition to help you move workloads from other environments, as well as just general display of what's happening here. In addition, you'll get a catalog. So if you're familiar with your end users or how they want to deploy VMs with your environment, you'll get 2 types. You can either do an instance type deployment, which will give you that t-shirt size kind of feel where you could select. So for example, Rail 9 here, we can select t-shirt size of how much CPU, how much memory we want to deploy to it, and make general configuration changes. In addition, you have a catalog style deployment where you can just make a selection. You can select the VM, you can make those same changes, and additionally, you can further customize it. So if you want to make specific memory changes, you want to do network interfaces, if you want to take advantage of that pod networking like Michael was talking about earlier, those are available to you. Or if you want to use external networking, that's also available. In addition, you have much more detail that you can jump into about node selection if you want to put workloads together, so they're running on the same node, those types of options.
Dain, if I could jump in before you move away from that.
Sure.
So I want to highlight within that capability where it was looking at affinity, and so we can do things like node affinity, node anti-affinity. We can say, all right, these workloads need to stay away from each other. They need to stay together. But you can also do leveraging the Kubernetes concepts of taints and tolerations, I can also say, well, I don't want these workloads on these other nodes, but I do want them on these nodes. Or I can utilize node selectors that'll say, all right, I only want to run this workload on a node that has this label on it. And so maybe I've got this one set of nodes that has this label and the other ones don't. And so that workload will always go to a node where that label is. And then some of the other technologies that you may be used to from your existing hypervisor. The existing, they're the same technology isn't necessarily in play, but the same outcome is there. And one of the things you'll see on here is the descheduler. So I hear a lot of times the ability for certain hypervisors to load balance VMs across the nodes. That descheduler gives me that capability. I can actually define thresholds that say, all right, if a node gets to be above a certain threshold, I'm going to start to deschedule workloads, and the scheduler is then going to move those workloads to other nodes in the cluster to start to balance that workload out. So a lot of times it's not the exact same technology or the same way of making it happen, but we're utilizing those native concepts within Kubernetes to achieve the same outcome.
Yeah, a lot of the same abilities that you see maybe in your current hypervisors are there. There are operational differences, so certain changes on how that might perform, but most of those capabilities are built in. And like the descheduler operator just came out of or just went into main release, and it's been getting a lot of attention. So the community is doing a lot of great work on that. And this whole project in general has a huge backing of support. And I know, Michael, you had some detail on that we were talking about earlier, um, but yeah, so then to continue, so you also have your virtual machine view. So where you could just create virtual machines directly from here, as well as see all the virtual machines in your environment. You can see it at project levels or all projects. So in this case, I think we've got around 50 in here that we've been playing with. But you can deep dive each of these if you wish, and you have full capability in here as well. So you can do day 2 activities, or if you need to make changes to CPU or memory, you want to access the console, and everything is also fully templatized for you in YAML. So if you want to do, Git or keep repository or control of your environment, you can keep that. Snapshots are built in. So all these capabilities that you're pretty much used to are built in here. In addition, you also have migrations. You can do live migrate between your nodes within your cluster as well. There are some storage stuffs that maybe, Michael, you want to touch on that right now. Do you think that's a good time?
Yeah, so one of
Sorry,
go ahead.
Michael,
Susan.
sorry, I do want to touch on storage, but I want to make sure if you said it and I didn't hear it, I apologize. The question that came in QA, does it support the VM storage replication across multiple clusters in different geographic locations? So, Michael or Dain, as you respond to that, can you address that question as well?
Yep. So
awesome.
Through OpenShift, we're talking to the storage through the storage class that's defined, and that storage class is generally going to utilize a CSI driver, container storage integration. This is a native Kubernetes construct, and it's the way that Kubernetes talks to the underlying storage to be able to do things like provision volumes, take snapshots, things like that. So those types of capabilities are going to be a result of the storage platform that you have selected, right? So in the case of the Dell Apex Cloud platform here, we're utilizing the Dell Container Storage Module operator, which utilizes the Dell CSI drivers to be able to connect to things like PowerFlex, PowerStore, PowerMax, PowerScale, to be able to use those underlying storage platforms and also inherit the underlying capabilities of those platforms. Of course, some of those are capable of asynchronous replications, some are capable of synchronous or even metro replication, and those capabilities can be used as well. One of the things as a result of, we saw that on one of the screens there was an eviction strategy live migrate. So the way that OpenShift handles virtual machines is slightly different from the way that it handles containers. Even though the underlying VM is running in a container, it still understands that this container needs to behave differently. So the default strategy for anytime a node is drained or a VM is evicted, what it's going to do is, instead of terminating that pod and then spinning up another pod on another node, it actually goes through a live migration process where it spins up another instance of the pod pointed to the same storage, synchronizes the state of those two pods, and then cuts over, right? So you don't actually have the one pod spinning down until the other side is already up and that state has been transferred. To accomplish this, OpenShift virtualization requires read-write many volumes to do that, right? And so read-write many you can do a couple different ways. One is through file, but there's also the capability of read-write many raw block, which is the preferred direction, because you're going to get more performance because you don't have the overhead of a file system on the underlying storage. But that gives that capability for live migration. So when you have a node going down, when you have workloads moving around, when you say move this to another node, it's going to go through that live migration process. So the workload running in the VM never realizes that anything's changed.
And Michael, there is I don't know if you were speaking to that because you saw the question in Q&A, but the question was specifically around, does the VM actually experience a ping drop? Is there any latency during when the migration is occurring? And it sounds to me like what you just said is no, you've addressed that.
You might see a momentary ping blip, but the virtual machine isn't going to shut down and restart. It's just that, and really it depends on the change rate of the VM when you do the migration, as to how long it takes for that synchronization to occur. But it's going to make sure that the VM is up on the other side, and it's that coordinated effort is going to stop talking to the disk from one side, just as it starts talking to the disk from the other side.
Okay, and do you feel comfortable speaking to how that could compare to a lot of what our customers are currently using today and what they're experiencing? Is it better than, is it equal to?
I would say it's comparable to.
Yeah, we've
Okay.
done testing internally to other hypervisors, and live migrate feature, we don't see any difference really overall between those capabilities. So.
Okay, everyone, you heard it here, authentic answers to real questions. I know we're getting really close to time. I just want to ask if there are any additional questions out there that anyone might want to ask. And obviously we've got some pretty smart, experienced people on the call. Kevin, is there anything that you wanted to cover that we haven't already discussed?
Yeah, I think one of the areas, one question that came up, and one of the areas I just want to double click on is Red Hat has really invested in partners, and I would say those partners have invested in Red Hat very substantially as well. So one of the things I hope is coming across is it's not just the Red Hat guy here talking, that's the Dell guy and the WWT guy that are answering those very technical questions. And so what we've really spent a lot of time doing is cultivating that deep knowledge throughout industry, so that you have a lot of choice to go to the vendors that you trust to help guide you through those transformation projects. And WWT is certainly a phenomenal one, as are Dell and Dell services that bring that to the table. All of course, backstopped by Red Hat and Red Hat Consulting as you go through. So that services layers, those consulting layers, the support that you get from this entire ecosystem is a pretty powerful validation, I would say, in where we are with virtualization. The other piece that I just wanted to touch on really briefly because there was a question about HCI. What we've done, especially specifically with Dell Apex, is to build with Dell an HCI type solution. It is one where storage is really baked into the entire environment. OpenShift is managing the environment. And so you get, as a customer, even if you're not terribly familiar with OpenShift to begin with, you get a very easy to run, fast to install, easy to upgrade environment that has been tested between our companies. It's not just the Red Hat portion of it. It's Red Hat and Dell that are bringing that to the table, and not only on day one, but on day day N that you're operating that environment. Those patches, the updates, they're all being tested and validated between our two companies. Hopefully making the experience of maintaining your environment, maintaining the security and compliance of your environment very, very high and very, very easy to do. So hopefully those are that got to your question. I thought that was a great one, but yes, there are absolutely HCI type experiences that you can adopt into.
Yeah, I'd love that. And just want to thank everybody again. I know we do have some questions in the Q&A. Some of them are very specific. So Mike, Dain, Josh, if you have an opportunity, perhaps we don't have time to answer those live, but we can definitely get you the answers to those questions. And no, you cannot ask too many questions. We do not charge per question under my watch. So love the interaction, love the questions, and that lets me know that people are serious, serious contender, if you will, as we all are looking for alternatives, perhaps to our incumbent virtualization provider. And with that, I just want to see if you want to put another poll up, or if you want to wrap us up, I will hand it back over to you. But thank you, Michael. Thank you, Dain, Josh in the background answering questions, and of course, Kevin from Red Hat. We hope you enjoyed the demo. Love the questions that are still coming through, and we will get to as many of those as we can. Look for that answer coming in chat.
Thank you, Suzanne. I'm going to launch one more poll here that you can take a look at, and then I think we have time to answer. If you want to pick a question or two to answer, we can do that, and then we can wrap up. So let me launch this for everyone to take. Share your answers here, and then if you all want to tackle two more questions, we can wrap things up.
Yeah, well, I'll ask the question. I think this is a good one. Do customers have access to OpenShift through the Red Hat Dev Portal?
Yeah, there are certainly, and I was just starting to type into that one. There are certainly a number of ways you can get there. I'd have to double check to see if you can get to it through the Dev Portal. I suspect that you can, but I'd have to double check. There are also really, really great options in terms of working with WWT, and Dain was just doing a great job showing a Dell Apex unit that they have installed and operating and running, as do Dell in their customer solution centers. So I think you've got a lot of opportunities to reach out, check these things out, see what that's like. But we'd certainly encourage you to work with our partners. And you're always welcome to reach out directly to Red Hat and your account teams there, and even me, if you want to have us follow up.
And one quick thing to add to that, OpenShift, when you install it, includes a 60-day trial period, right? So you can install OpenShift and run for 60 days without a license. After that, you don't have support, but it doesn't shut down functionality. So it's not the way I would run production workloads, obviously, but it's not going to lock itself down after that 60-day trial period.
Yeah, and as Kevin said, we have demos that are available to our customers. You can reach out to us. We could provide POC and testing grounds that are available. And even this Apex unit that I'm demoing from is available to our customers to look at as well. So feel free to reach out.
Is that a link that you can post in the chat, Dain, not to put you on the spot?
I can link to the specific ones, but these are requested labs. So we can't have more than one person coming in and kind of playing with it at a time for these ones. So.
All right. Well, thank you for that. All right. I think we're right at time. Anne, do you want to take us home?
Sure thing. Thanks, Suzanne, and thank you all. And I love all the questions coming in. Keep them coming. If you have questions for a certain speaker and want us to connect you, feel free to let our team know at memberservices@elevateusergroup.com. We will also send out an email with some resources and links for everybody as a follow-up to today's webcast, and also the link to watch it on demand. I do want to take a minute and thank our sponsors. Thank you, Dell Technologies, Red Hat, and Intel. We appreciate your continued support. We will have one more webcast before the end of the year, so be on the lookout for that coming soon. And if you joined or if you liked today's program, I put a link to the survey in there. We would love your feedback. We take all the feedback from members and apply that feedback when we get together and figure out programming. Our board is coming together in a couple of weeks, so we really look at all of your feedback to make sure we're bringing you the most valuable information.
There will be slides.
With that, that's right. That's right. Well, with that, we will wrap up. Thank you again, everybody. Thank you to our speakers for attending and everybody for joining. We will follow up with you with all the information.
Thanks,
Thank
Ann. Thank
you.
you, Michael, Dain, Kevin,
Great
and
job.
Josh.
Thanks for the time, everybody. Thank you so much, Suzanne. You were wonderful.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.